If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be greed. I feel like Starbucks, in the name of greed, has taken a hammer to their reputation, smashed it to a million pieces, and now they're just like, oh no, our stock prices, they're falling. Like, to watch such a big company repeatedly and deliberately cause its own problems while simultaneously throwing a tantrum and making it seem like it's everybody else's fault is objectively entertaining. I mean, I guess technically nothing is objectively entertaining other than my videos, but seriously, it's gotten so bad that like Starbucks officials are getting called out in interviews. The old CEO is just going on podcasts talking about how mid Starbucks is now. I feel like today's story could only be described as corporate embarrassment, and I, for one, am excited to get into it. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of ethereal anthropology, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe I'm just broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's lecture, we're going to see not just how Starbucks is like crashing and burning, but how it represents a broader trend of things going generally horribly wrong within the fast food industry. Because honestly, people are tired. It would literally only take one thing to solve this entire problem, which is offering food at a reasonable price. But as you're going to see, companies would literally rather die. So I'd say this whole story really kicked into high gear when Starbucks announced that they would be hiring a new CEO. Technically, he hasn't even started yet, like that's how recently this was announced, but people are already upset with him, and I think I understand why. It's a whole thing, it involves a private jet, but we'll get there when we get there. But out of all the think pieces that came out, What's Wrong with Starbucks by the Wall Street Journal really broke it all down. I think there were a few moments in this article that were kind of cringe, but it served as a fairly decent jumping off point, and it makes it really clear that Starbucks has two main things working against it right now: the prices and the vibes. The vibes are off, there's no other way to put it, but let's start with the prices. So they have these mini interviews with a few Starbucks customers. Starbucks was Dan Palmer's go-to, like the mango dragon fruit refresher that became his drink of choice, except each cup now costs him more than $6. The prices have gone up a lot, said Palmer. It's not a deal in any sense of the word. And I feel like Starbucks was kind of already known for having expensive drinks, but the data is clear. Whether you're going for that mango dragon fruit refresher or just a normal cup of Joe, it's gonna wind up costing you more than ever, no matter what you're picking off the menu. They interviewed this other guy who said he's given up Starbucks entirely due to the price hikes, saving over $100 a month, because Starbucks is, quote, really a luxury now. Now, as for the cringe in the article I was referring to, it's basically right over here. So customers like Mr. Pearl here are making it clear that the prices are the reason that they're not paying for Starbucks, hence their 6% drop in US orders in their last quarter. But then the Wall Street Journal is low-key trying to blame wages for some reason. Price is part of the problem. Restaurants boosted them as wages, ingredients, and other costs became more expensive, and now they're paying for it. Nothing like those pesky employees and their wages and paying them livable amounts of money to work for us. I'd probably reword this as price is part of the problem. Restaurants boosted them as they crumbled under the weight of their relentless capitalist expansion. But that's probably why I'm on YouTube and not the Wall Street Journal. But no matter who you want to blame, Starbucks is really not doing so hot right now. CNBC tells us that in April, their shares sank so much that they had to reevaluate their forecast. They told investors, we're going to do so good, guys. Just watch. Everyone's going to buy our expensive coffee just like they do every year. But then y'all didn't. And now they're panicking. And desperate times call for desperate measures. Why your Starbucks Frappuccino is now half price. So even just a couple months ago, they were like desperately sending out all these deals, trying to get people back inside the cafe. Wall Street Journal says, for the first time in more than a decade, Starbucks began offering bundles of coffee and breakfast food starting at $5. Keep checking the app all summer for more deals heading your way. Translation, please buy our coffee. Please, for the love of God, oh my God, please buy the coffee. Please, our investors are gonna kill us. Seattle-based Starbucks has long positioned itself as a premium brand with prices to match. A single iced coffee with extra syrups and foams can cost about $10 at full price. How did they even think this was going to be sustainable? $10 for a cup of coffee is just the direct result of hiking these prices up as high as they can get away with. But they have finally capitalized too hard to the point where they are not in fact getting away with it. And like I said earlier in the video, this is not a unique Starbucks problem. This cycle of like raise your prices and then freak out and try to have a bunch of deals is happening all over the fast food industry. This article from The Street shows that like just over the last 5 years, prices are doubling at McDonald's. They're doubling at Taco Bell. Things are almost double at Chick-fil-A, Burger King, Jack in the Box. Actually, okay, Jack in the Box isn't quite as high as everyone else. It's funny because we're trying to blame like ingredient costs and wages, but I just don't feel like the wages have doubled in the last 5 years. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know much about economics. Obviously, my degree is in, what did I say it was in this time? Anthropology. But this isn't really just giving me inflation vibes. It more so has, we are just going to charge people as much money as humanly possible vibes. And so customers started asking themselves, what if we just followed the deals? So Pizza Hut was like, okay, we have the deals. $7 deal lovers menu. And then Taco Bell was like, no, we have the best deals. Check out our cravings value menu. And McDonald's was like, nah, y'all wish. I'm gonna hit them with the $5 meal deal. Like companies were actually in a race to see who could lower their prices first. Burger King to launch $5 value meal to hit back at McDonald's, says Bloomberg. Americans are cutting back on dining out and fast food chains are rolling out deals to spark demand. Regardless of McDonald's plans, we are moving full speed ahead with our own plans to launch our own $5 value meal before they do. And so this is all rolled into what can be referred to as the value wars, according to Today. And like this is still happening. CNN just now. Subway announces a new price for footlongs as it enters the value menu wars. They couldn't even commit to $5 footlongs anymore because I guess we have a $7 footlong. I mean, to be fair, Subway sandwiches are like so big, but I miss the $5 footlong era. Does anybody remember those commercials where they would like sing it? $5 footlong. That's been stuck in my head for like 15 years. Marketing is terrifying, but deals are temporary and they're not changing the fact that things have gotten way out of hand. Americans are choking on surging fast food prices. I can't justify the expense, one customer says. And the CBS News article has more angry customers. The whole conceit was that you were getting some okay level of food for a low price and you could get it quick. If I'm paying $15 for a burger and fry and drink and it's McDonald's quality, forget about it. I'm going home. But the fast food companies are still trying to blame their employees. Restaurant chains point to rising labor costs as a key factor driving up prices. 22 states raised their minimum wages in January. In California, big chains are now required to pay their workers a minimum wage of $20 an hour. But besides the value meals, aka fast food spots trying to get you hype over the fact that they are offering reasonably priced food, there's some other more experimental tactics they're taking. Surge pricing is coming to more menus near you. So this article from the Wall Street Journal is actually about restaurants and how they're borrowing surge pricing. Dozens of restaurant brands use technology to change their prices based on demand trends. Dave & Buster's and other chains are dabbling with the tech to help spread out customer visits over a broader part of the day. And more importantly, capitalize on rush periods. We're gonna have a dynamic pricing model so we have the right price at the right time to match the peak demand. And like dynamic pricing is already a thing with like Uber rides or airlines, but people are reasonably kind of annoyed to see this creeping up into fast food. Increasing the price of something just because more people are using it so you can make more money is so blatant. And so imagine how excited everyone was when Wendy's announced their new AI-powered dynamic pricing menu. As Ars Technica tells us, beginning as early as 2025, Wendy's will begin testing a variety of enhanced features like dynamic pricing, different offerings in certain parts of the day, AI-enabled menu changes, and suggestive selling based on factors such as weather. When this was announced, everybody was flaming them, like even other fast food companies. The only thing surging at Burger King is the fire. We don't believe in charging people more when they're hungry. Free Whopper or Impossible Whopper with $3 purchase in the Burger King app through Friday. And so Wendy's had to come out like, no guys, no, we didn't say surge pricing, we said dynamic pricing. We said our menu boards would give us more flexibility to change the display of featured items. This was misconstrued in some media reports as an intent to raise prices when demand is highest at our restaurants. We have no plans to do that and would not raise prices when customers are visiting us the most. So the story Wendy's is going with is that yes, they were going to do dynamic prices and change the value of menu items throughout the day, but they were only going to lower them. It was all actually just about offering deals to people. They were never at any point going to charge anybody more. And you know, if you really expect me to believe that, why would you not call it, I don't know, dynamic deals, dynamic discounts, dare I say? As Yahoo points out, dynamic pricing and surge pricing are kind of hard to differentiate. Technically, surge pricing is a form of dynamic pricing. Sometimes outlets like Reuters say dynamic pricing refers to surge pricing. In other words, increasing the price based on demand, especially during peak hours of the day. So I guess I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not Wendy's just got misconstrued by every single media outlet on earth, or if they were really going to try surge pricing and then backtracked when everybody got mad at them. But the point remains, Everybody's prices are terrible right now and nobody seems to know what to do about it. It applies to Starbucks and it applies to the fast food industry at large. Now, some of you may be wondering why I'm referring to Starbucks as part of the fast food industry. I mean, I think the official story is that they're like a cafe, but that kind of leads us to the second thing that the Wall Street Journal article that kicked it all off tells us. Starbucks isn't really doing a good job maintaining that cafe vibe. In fact, Starbucks is not doing a good job maintaining its vibes at all, as you're about to see. So I actually remember when Starbucks used to be seen as like cool. There's this Reddit comment. Someone's like, do you guys remember in like 2004 when Starbucks was the coolest, trendiest place to be? And now it's basically McDonald's. How far they have fallen. Like, to be fair, Starbucks did not used to feel like fast food. I think it was a cafe through and through. They had the funky furniture, it had a nice atmosphere. But seeing as Starbucks has lately taken to ripping out all of the furniture from its stores and just leaving them as these empty floors, basically, I don't know if it's happening anywhere else, but several Starbucks near me have renovated and they just removed all tables and it's order only. I just stopped going since there's no room to work there anymore. A lot of students and remote workers were regulars. It's pretty safe to say Starbucks has gone all in the fast food route, which is actually kind of sad when you think about it. Like, the way in which Starbucks was cool was by design. It was literally supposed to be a place where you could hang out, have fun. Starbucks referred to the concept of a third place. And so that was a third place that wasn't home or work. It was Starbucks. So you could meet a friend, you could get some work done, you could be social and not get blasted by like demonically cold AC while they play the loudest music you've ever heard. And now in some Starbucks, you can't even sit down at all. So the concept of this third place is like 11th place. A major shift at Starbucks is changing its personality, says CNN. God, there are just so many Starbucks think pieces that came out this year. Years ago, some people would spend hours at Starbucks. Today, it's a takeout counter. At many Starbucks locations, you're lucky to find anyone sitting down. And so part of the reason they've gone down this route is they're trying to prioritize mobile ordering and their drive-thru, which I guess makes sense because these two formats apparently make up more than 70% of Starbucks' sales. It's very clear that many Starbucks locations just want you to get in and then get out. That way they can serve the next person, thus pulling out the comfortable chairs and replacing them with hard wooden stools, etc. Or the pickup-only stores, like that one person got all their Starbucks turned into. And so this guy who was Starbucks' CEO until he very recently was replaced, we'll get into all that later, he said third place is a broader definition. The classic definition of third place, it's a box where I go to meet someone. It's frankly not relevant anymore in this context. I guess y'all's sales aren't relevant anymore in this context either, because it goes on to say how they're dropping. But yeah, this is a whole thing. Reimagining the third place, how Starbucks is evolving its store experience. Starbucks dropped this whole backstory trying to make it sound like a good thing that they are no longer a place to sit down and enjoy yourself. They're elevating experiential convenience. The third place has never been defined solely by a physical space. It's also the feeling of warmth, connection, a sense of belonging. Starbucks. Are y'all missing a word here, or? Digital technology is helping augment and extend that feeling of connection with customers, whether they are in Starbucks stores, in their cars, on their doorsteps. Listen, I know people throw around the word dystopia too often, but we've got companies out here trying to convince us that digital technology is helping augment and extend the feeling of warmth. I'll tell you one way digital technology is not contributing to the vibes at Starbucks. So the cafe chain is already kind of infamous for its somewhat long wait times, and it's not the fault of the baristas who are working as hard as they can, but rather Starbucks just leaving people understaffed. But this is all getting more complex in recent years because people are on TikTok and they're basically in a competition to see who can create the most elaborate Starbucks drink for some reason. And I don't just mean the things Starbucks offers, like a whiskey barrel-aged cold brew, but rather the 170,000 other possible configurations of Starbucks drinks that you could actually ask for. TikTok fans brew even more complicated orders at Starbucks. Social media influencers take customized drinks to new extremes. Baristas find it a bit exhausting. So we're talking things like a venti cold brew with caramel syrup and vanilla sweet cream cold foam, apple brown sugar syrup, apple in the foam, and cinnamon dulce on top. And once again, again, this is representative of things that are going on in the larger fast food sphere. People are out here trying to do custom menu stuff at Chick-fil-A, McDonald's with a Snickers iced coffee with chocolate syrup, chocolate caramel syrup, whipped cream, and 2 caramel drizzles. And it got to the point where Starbucks said they were trying to increase staffing to handle the influx of labor-intensive drinks. They had to put out like training videos. It was slowing down service. But here's the part where it actually gets kind of sus. One of these influencers said she was actually getting paid by Wendy's and McDonald's to make or promote TikTok videos featuring their food. Wendy's, always having to defend themselves for some reason, was like, no, we gave her gift cards and food deliveries, but she wasn't compensated as a paid partner. McDonald's didn't say anything at all, which is interesting. And so I'm not accusing Starbucks specifically of like launching this campaign to try to get people in the store, though I am always wary of any sort of internet trend that results in a lot of people purchasing one product while not realizing that it feels like advertising. But regardless, between Wendy's and McDonald's, I just see this as another example of fast food companies causing their own problems. Like, you're going to be short-staffed and encourage a bunch of extra work for your employees that are working there. Pick a struggle. But anyway, between the long wait times and the missing furniture and the fact that Starbucks is basically fast food, you can see just how off the vibes were. So off, in fact, that Howard Schultz, probably one of Starbucks' most prominent former CEOs and the person who was at the helm during their massive expansion, he hopped on the Acquired podcast to share his feelings about how Starbucks is going, and it's interesting to say the least.
And everyone who ordered on their app, it says the same thing. Your drink's going to be ready in 7 minutes. And everyone shows up. And all of a sudden, we got a mosh pit. And that's not Starbucks.
When you've got the man who is synonymous with Starbucks saying Starbucks is no longer Starbucks, it's not looking good for Starbucks. Take a shot every time I say Starbucks. A shot of espresso. By the time the video is over, you'll be able to like read ancient Latin or something. He was mad though. He was big mad.
If the company is in a drift towards mediocrity, I hold leadership and the board responsible for that. And my letter was not accusatory.
So the letter in question was this really long LinkedIn rant. Starbucks announced earnings last week and unfortunately significantly missed shareholder expectations. And he goes on to explain how he has no formal role within Starbucks anymore. But my love of the company and all those who wear the cloth of the company, the iconic green apron, knows no bounds. But this letter is wild, y'all. At any company that misses badly, there must be contrition and renewed focus. Own the shortcoming without the slightest semblance of an excuse. Starbucks will recover. Of that, I am certain. Starbucks created an industry that did not exist. The brand is one of the most recognized and respected, and my brother in Christ, it is literally Starbucks. So he says US operations are the primary reason for the company's fall from grace. Senior leaders need to spend more time with those who wear the green apron. Reinvent the mobile ordering and payment platform, which Starbucks pioneered, and overhaul and elevate their go-to-market strategy with coffee-forward innovation, which is exactly what I was gonna say Starbucks needs to do. But it turns out all the people in the LinkedIn comment section are like, no, actually, maybe you should just lower your godforsaken prices. It's so funny because I have never seen like a LinkedIn comment section get lit before. Why would a consumer buy a $4 to $7 coffee at Starbucks when they can go to a craft coffee shop and get higher quality coffee for the same price? American executives are out of touch with what customers want. This is not a problem with the consumer experience, it's a problem with pricing. Howard, respectfully, why should I pay upwards of $5 for a coffee I can brew on my home unit? And everyone's like, maybe you should just go back to the 3rd place and make Starbucks somewhere people actually enjoy going. Also, since we're roasting Howard Schultz, can I just point out, Starbucks union fight intensifies. Like, under this man's leadership, Starbucks was trying so hard to like bust their union. The union has filed dozens of complaints accusing the company of firing workers seeking to organize, and Schultz called the union a vocal minority trying to drive a wedge between the company and its workers. I wouldn't think I would have to explain anything about business to a billionaire, but actually a union is when your workers are trying to be treated fairly and give themselves some agency. And I'm pretty sure the only wedge Schultz is worried about is between him and his money, which is why he doesn't want to pay people. He doesn't want people to have the power to argue for more wages. But no, it's the union that's bad. So he like nitpicks individual instances of behavior. Meanwhile, according to CNN, Starbucks itself is literally violating federal labor law by withholding pay hikes from unionized workers. Starbucks workers unions sue each other and stand off over over pro-Palestinian social media posts. Starbucks violated labor laws by firing employees because they were pro-union, labor judge rules. And so I would describe that as another just pretty awful vibe from Starbucks, if you know what I mean. But yeah, speaking of CEOs, we had Schultz, right? And then we had a guy who came after him. Not the new guy who everyone's concerned, but the one who was in between. The one who said the third place is no longer appropriate to the context or whatever. Laxman Narasimhan. He posed with his workers. He wore an apron and smiled. He was outside, I guess, looking at a singular coffee bean. Like, I'm sorry, but this puff piece Starbucks released for him when he joined is so funny to me. First sip, he's listening and learning, buddying it up with Schultz over here. He earned his apron. This is the kind of smile that you could only have in fast food if you don't actually work in fast food and you're just gonna go to your $1 million CEO job after this. But yeah, Laxman's just a guy. He's just a genuine guy. But then like the moment he finished his press tour and he actually started working, Starbucks pretty much died immediately. Like, obviously Starbucks is fine and it's not all this man's fault, but their stock prices were taking a nosedive. So he got asked about it in an interview and it is so... Maybe you should just watch it. So remember how I said Starbucks had to revise their projections? In other words, they thought they were going to make a certain amount, but then people didn't buy enough coffee and they had to go back and be like, oh, just kidding. Well, this is Laxman Narasimhan being asked about that on CNBC.
And I appreciate that you're coming on, despite the fact that the quarter was extremely weak.
Jim, it was a very tough quarter.
When I tell you that this man just drags him, Starbucks, everything related to Starbucks to absolute filth.
Well, I'd like to know why you did not feel the need to come out and say our quarter is going to be substantially worse than expected at least 4 weeks ago.
I think, Jim, we've been working on action plans.
That's going to be my new go-to anytime anybody asks me about anything. Like, hey, I thought you said you were going to take the trash out. Well, actually, I've been working on action plans for a more coffee-forward approach to trash.
I checked with all the major, both public and private companies that are in a similar business to you, and no one saw a 3% decline in comp stores because of weather, and none of them saw a negative number except for you. Is it possible that your coffee is just too darn expensive?
Yeah, he's mad. He's mad. I feel like this interview happened 3 months ago and I don't know what we were doing 3 months ago, but I feel like this should have gone viral. But anyway, needless to say, Mr. Narasimhan was not able to save Starbucks, not even by naming his plan to get them out of the dirt. Triple shot reinvention with 2 pumps. I'm gonna be honest, you deserve to be fired just over that. I only make this joke because I'm sure he made enough money during his brief time as CEO to be fine. He was trying, but no. Thus enter Brian Nicole, who was actually the CEO of Chipotle. So according to the New York Times, this man has been the CEO of Chipotle since 2018. And next month, he's going to be moving directly to Starbucks as the CEO. And Laxman barely made it over a year. So I don't know much about Chipotle, but I feel like people's perception of it during this man's tenure were not like the strongest. But nevertheless, if you like what Chipotle has done over the past 6 years, I'm sure you'll love whatever Brian Nicole is going to do with Starbucks. But what many people did not love was the offer letter. It wound up getting posted publicly on a government website and it's kind of hard to read. But Bloomberg summed it up and he's getting $113 million. When you add up this man's base salary and his bonus and his whatever else. And you know, part of me feels like complaining about, oh no, our money, while paying somebody $100 million to do a job sort of dilutes your dilemma a little bit. But oh, it gets worse because the offer letter also revealed that he doesn't even have to move to Seattle, aka Starbucks' headquarters, and instead he can just travel the 1,000 miles there on a corporate jet. They're just going to fly this man up and down the country, I guess whenever he needs to. And according to the New York Times, this is apparently a thing. Wells Fargo CEO is in New York and commutes regularly to San Francisco. Bumble's CEO is commuting from Massachusetts to Texas. Remote work for CEOs is one of the tools you can use to recruit a new CEO who might not be willing to relocate to the company's headquarters. Imagine getting paid $100 million, but still being too lazy to actually move to receive it. Not even $100 million is enough to slightly inconvenience you. You take the money and just wreck the environment so you can have more fun at home, I guess. And maybe I'm biased because I do work from home, but I just feel like a 1,000-mile corporate jet commute is a bit overkill. CNN, Starbucks is giving its new CEO a private jet to commute between his California home and Seattle office. Do not ever try to tell me that this is a wages issue. Like, it's this person's wages. How in the world are you going to effectively blame your baristas when you are actually burning money for no discernible reason? Ooh, but the minimum wage is like, nah, miss me with that. Jet travel, whether via large commercial jet or small private jet, is a major source of carbon emissions. 800 million tons of CO2, more than 2% of global energy-related emissions. So this is why people were looking at Starbucks' new CEO like, man, what is going on here? I saw a lot of people pointing out how hypocritical it feels, because Starbucks sure does seem excited to let us know how environmentally friendly they are. We're driving innovation at scale to achieve our 2030 targets. Now, here's your 2024 target. Shush. Oh, but guys, they have plant-based menu options. They have an environmental and social impact reporting hub. Are you reporting the part with the potential thousands of miles of corporate jet usage? Or people were also pointing out that it's kind of ridiculous that no other person at Starbucks has the ability to work remotely from a different state. Not even the baristas, but the white-collar workers. Everyone else has to be in office 3 days a week. And then just the salary in the first place people took issue with. Starbucks' new CEO will reportedly land a pay package that is almost 8,000 times the pay of the median Starbucks employee. Last year, he raked in over $20 million, over 1,000 times the pay of a Chipotle employee. How come we never talk about CEO pay when we talk about rising prices? Because obviously, it makes more sense to blame the people without whom your company would literally not exist and you wouldn't be able to make $100 million anyway. Clearly, the baristas are at fault here. Also, you know, when The Guardian tells us that the richest 1% account for more carbon emissions than 2/3 of everybody else, polluter elites are plundering the planet to the point of destruction. They say eat the rich, and you know what? At least it would be cheaper than Starbucks. Anyway, my verdict on all of this is that we live in a society. Also, is Starbucks even good? Because I've never actually had it. I don't know if I've just become more educated on good coffee or if they've changed the product, but their coffee doesn't taste good. I refuse to pay that much for coffee that often tastes burned and has to have a ton of stuff added to it so it's drinkable. I've been to Starbucks, but I don't really drink coffee, so I wouldn't know good coffee if it coffeeed me in the face. So I guess you'll have to tell me if it's really worth all of that or if it's just too mid to justify the price. But either way, that's my take on the situation. Dave's take on the situation is that he's really more of a tea guy, and I'm excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, leave a like, and comment on the video, but I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I am, of course, running a 100% totally, completely, all the way, mostly accredited slightly university. Just ask anybody in the student body. We're totally legit. Maybe not legally, but you know. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess. But until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to drink water.